Welcome back to Africa This Week. In the past week, demonstrations were held nationwide against the rising cost of living and fuel hike imposed by President Mnangagwa, who says it is the right thing to do for an economy struggling with its worst gasoline shortages in a decade. In the meantime, there has been reports of brutal security clampdown by the police and army on protesters and citizens, which has left many fearful that the country is quickly sliding back to the worst authoritarian era of former President Robert Mugabe, who was ousted in November 2017 after 37 years in power. Joining me now on to dig deep is Okenna Nebudum, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Now we have Zimbabwe that has plunged into a crisis after jubilating resignation of Robert Mugabe as its president. How come?
Mugabe has gone, but Mugabe remained. You remember very well that the trial, Mnangagwa, Mugabe, and the army chief were the trial that got the revolution and then took over power some 35 years ago. And then with what happened in 2017, it almost seemed like the military eased Mugabe out and then replaced him with one of his own. And in tackling solutions strategically, part of those who formed the problem may not necessarily form the solution. And that is what is playing out here. I thank Zimbabweans for the revolution that took place, started sometime 2016, right. April to September, and which led to, started from like a one-man thing of Pastor Evans, and then snowballed into a national revolution. I thank them for their courage, even though it was not without lettings of blood and what is repeating itself right now. But the president who holds sway right now, he has the challenge in his hands. Either he changes his ways or he tries new strategies, which I have seen him do by opening the economic windows for investors to come into Zimbabwe and relaxing some of those their measures against foreign investments. And I also think that some of the perennial challenges they have cannot be solved overnight. There has been decades and decades of problems which has entered into some, have been very endemic, especially having to do with their economy. Their currency, you remember they had to jettison their national currency at a time, and presently rationing petrol and eventually even increasing the pump price right now may seem to the way the population, the citizens received it was like the way they received the money bonds that was given to them sometime in lieu of their right to withdraw their monies from bank. But when there's a shortage of currency, you notice that they were rationed and they called it surrogate currency. I have money in bank, I cannot withdraw. Some of them that are civil servants cannot even get paid. Some of these things are repeating themselves now. Old problems rising their ugly heads under the reign of Mnangagwa.
Well, if the president insists that this is the way to ensure that the economy problem is revitalized, that the economy is going down the drain, so this is just a way, as a measure to get the economy back on its feet, and the citizens are protesting. So what would you say? Is it a right step to take?
Action and reaction are equal and opposite. The president has done what he thinks most and probably born out of the advice of his economic team. But the population received it with a protest that if we increase pump price, then we are asking for increasing salaries. You understand? They should go, pari passu. But which I know, their national budget, 90% of the national budget takes care of recurrent expenditures, which the state of the economy now cannot carry. And that is what the president is emphasizing and re-emphasizing, that we have a very crucial situation in our hands, except something gives way other way. But that is not the way to pass your message to a beleaguered citizenry, which has been suffering the most kind of degraded and met with misgovernance over time. it is not the way to go about it, to begin to shut down internet access, which I know the government may be afraid that this is what triggered what removed my predecessor from office. And if I allow it, it will also ease me out. But at the same time too, remember, even the bill against cyber crimes, which was the government's response to the social media revolution that happened at the time, couldn't even stop that. Even right now, I also envisage a situation that clamping down on them, having the security personnel, government forces going from street to street, house to house, smoking people out, clamping them to prison, and violating personal liberty.
The argument is that they are he's suspecting that it is the opponents that are against
the MDC.
Him, absolutely, that are against him. That is why they are going to some of these villages to fish them out. And in fact, human rights have reported cases of people being killed, 12 people, over 300 people being displaced as well. And they are now saying that he's clamping down on opponents,
muzzling
oppositions,
Muzzling oppositions is not the answer, because in doing so, it's a blanket approach. By the time you try to muzzle opposition, you also infringe on people's rights who are not opposition card-carrying members. Is there not a cause in the first place for people to protest? There is a cause. But once there is a cause for them to protest, allow them to ventilate their grievances as much as they do that in a civil manner. Political opponent and political opponent's strategy and the way they want to pass their message to Zimbabweans to prepare themselves for alternative government, or government that is alternative to Mnangagwa, assuming anything happens, you know, is also a way of the opposition preparing themselves for, you know, for power. You can't allow them to keep waiting for you to clamp down on citizens without providing solution, and that citizens themselves, if the opposition gives them that comfort of airing their grievances, you cannot even shut it down too. So it is something that the Mnangagwa-led regime should sit down and weigh his options between clamping down on the right of citizens to protest against what they see that are very anti-human rights approach of government, and he should also distance himself from having or being termed to look like his predecessor.
Okay, well, it's quite not not quite unfortunate. Let me just say that we don't have much time to talk about this, because it's issues that are really affecting Africans. So just to custom with this, now the government is being blamed, the citizens are also being blamed, but on whose table the buck really stopped?
On Mnangagwa. Zimbabweans are his citizens. He cannot be president of elsewhere except Zimbabwe, so he should listen to Zimbabweans.
All right, thank you very much, Okenna Nebudem, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Well, another week gone and another opportunity to learn from the past, improve on the present and secure the future. It all starts by setting the record straight, redefining the status quo, raising the standard for leaders to either step up or step out. I've been your guide, Ibrahim Shita, and thanks for watching, and bye for now.